She stepped into the elevator, feeling the judgmental stares of wealthy women surrounding her. They exchanged smug glances, mocking her simple black dress. But when the doors opened, she saw him, her billionaire husband, standing there with a commanding presence. What happened next would change everything. Grace hurried into the elevator, her heart racing as she prepared for an important charity meeting. She had been looking forward to this event for weeks, knowing it could make a significant difference in the lives of many. Yet, as the doors slid shut, she immediately felt the weight of judgment from the women around her. Dressed in a simple black dress that hugged her curves without excess, she stood out among the elegant, designer-clad women. The elevator's luxurious interior, polished marble floors, golden accents, and soft lighting seemed to amplify her understated elegance, but also highlighted her simplicity. A few ladies exchanged knowing glances, their whispers barely audible but laced with disdain. "Can you believe her? Showing up like that," one woman murmured, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The others tittered, their laughter echoing off the ornate walls, making Grace feel even smaller. She could feel their eyes on her, critiquing her every detail. What they didn't know was that Grace was more than just a pretty face. Beneath her calm demeanor lay the heart of a billionaire's wife, a woman who had spent years navigating the elite social circles while remaining true to her humble roots. She didn't need to flaunt her wealth. Her husband's status and their charitable endeavors spoke volumes. Yet, at this moment, she felt the sting of their condescension. She was aware that despite her fortune, she looked like just another woman out of place in a sea of opulence. And as the elevator continued to climb, Grace steeled herself for what lay ahead, knowing the lessons learned today could be monumental. But little did they know, a lesson was about to unfold. As the elevator glided upwards, the atmosphere thickened with palpable tension. Grace stood tall, clutching her handbag tightly, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm that mirrored the ascending floors. The elegant women surrounding her, clad in designer outfits and dripping with jewels, continued their relentless scrutiny, their eyes glinting with disdain, as if she were a puzzle they couldn't solve. Each passing moment intensified the sensation of judgment that wrapped around her like a shroud, tightening with every floor they climbed, constricting her confidence. "Why would anyone dress like that to an event like this?" one woman whispered, her tone sharp and dismissive, like a blade cutting through the air. Grace's cheeks flushed with a deep embarrassment, the heat creeping up to her ears as she held her head high, refusing to let their arrogance shatter her resolve. She reminded herself of the importance of her work, the lives she aimed to uplift, and the mission she stood for. Yet, despite her inner strength, each sneer and mocking glance felt like a weight pressing down on her shoulders, a reminder of the chasm between her and the world of wealth surrounding her. Suddenly, the elevator jolted to an abrupt stop between floors, causing a collective gasp to echo in the enclosed space. Grace's stomach dropped at the unexpected halt, panic flaring in her chest. The women's laughter morphed into hushed whispers, their faces a mixture of surprise and delight as they found amusement in her predicament, as if this was all a grand spectacle for their entertainment. "What a disaster," another woman scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I bet she doesn't even know how to dress properly." Grace closed her eyes briefly, willing herself to stay calm amidst the rising tide of emotions. The moment felt surreal, a perfect representation of the social divide that separated her from the elite women surrounding her. The taunts were sharper than any blade, piercing through her defenses, echoing in her mind, and she could feel the weight of their scorn enveloping her. As the elevator lights flickered ominously, Grace's anxiety surged. Would they be stuck here forever? What if they were late to the event? The thoughts spiraled through her mind, intensifying her discomfort. The air felt thick and suffocating, and she fought the urge to fidget, knowing that any sign of weakness would only fuel their derision. Just then, the elevator doors opened to reveal a lavish lobby filled with high society guests. Dressed in extravagant gowns and tailored suits, their laughter ringing out like a symphony of privilege. Grace stepped forward, her heart racing as she caught the disapproving gazes of the women, their laughter fading into the background as they continued to scrutinize her every move. The sense of urgency surged within her. She had to prove herself, not only to them, but also to the world that often judged her based on her appearance rather than her abilities. She was determined to rise above their judgments, to show that she belonged in this world, even if her attire did not conform to their standards. As the women continued their cruel remarks, Grace felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. She was more than what they saw. A simple black dress couldn't define her worth or her contributions to society. She had worked hard to achieve her goals, building a successful career while remaining true to her humble roots. But little did they know, a surprising turn of events was on the horizon that would change everything for her and the very women who scorned her, reshaping their perceptions and revealing the truth behind appearances. Just as Grace stepped into the lobby, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The laughter and chatter of the high society crowd fell silent, as if the world had paused in anticipation. Her heart raced, not just from the judgmental stares of the women around her, but from an unexpected surge of hope. She had braced herself for the worst, but little did she know that her knight in shining armor was about to make an entrance. The doors of the elevator opened with a graceful whoosh, revealing Thomas Anderson, her husband and a man of immense influence. The moment he stepped forward, the air crackled with his commanding presence, instantly captivating everyone in the room. Dressed impeccably in a tailored gray Italian suit, his deep brown eyes scanned the crowd with authority, exuding a charisma that turned heads and hushed whispers. The aura of power and elegance he radiated was undeniable, and Grace felt a surge of pride at the sight of him. "Is everything all right, my love?" he asked, his voice steady and rich, as he approached Grace with a protective air. She could see the concern etched in his features, contrasting with the smirks of the women who had ridiculed her moments before. The atmosphere felt charged as he focused on her, unaware of the disdain lingering in the air. The rich women exchanged nervous glances, their earlier confidence faltering in the face of Thomas's undeniable authority. With a single glance, he silenced the murmurs and restored order to the chaos. Grace could feel their contempt shift to unease, as if they were suddenly aware that the tables had turned. "What a surprise," Victoria sneered, her voice laced with disbelief. "I didn't expect to see you here, dear." Before Grace could respond, Thomas stepped forward, his demeanor transforming from concerned husband to a figure of power. "My wife deserves respect," he declared, his tone firm yet measured. "She is not just someone who dresses simply. She is a force to be reckoned with." As he spoke, the tension in the room grew thick with anticipation. Grace could feel the heat rising in her chest, a mix of fear and exhilaration flooding her senses. Would this be the moment when their reality would shift? Could Thomas expose the truth about her without igniting further hostility? In that instant, the anticipation was almost unbearable. Grace knew that her life, and perhaps the lives of those who had judged her, was about to change. The hum of whispers rose, the room buzzing with curiosity as Thomas prepared to confront the women who had belittled her, ready to unveil the truth that lay beneath the surface. What would he say? How would the women react? Grace held her breath, the world around her fading, as she waited for the next words to shatter the silence and reshape everything she thought she knew. The atmosphere was electric as Thomas stood tall, his powerful presence filling the room with an air of authority. "You think you can judge my wife based on her appearance?" he challenged, his voice resonating with unwavering conviction. The tension in the air thickened, eyes darting between him and the antagonistic women, who appeared momentarily rattled by his boldness. Grace felt her heart pounding, a mix of anxiety and hope coursing through her veins. This was the moment she had envisioned, but would it lead to the vindication she so desperately needed? Thomas continued, his gaze piercing through the smugness of Victoria and Isabel. "Grace isn't just a simple woman. She's a brilliant entrepreneur who has dedicated herself to uplifting others in our community. The wealth she possesses has not altered her humility." As he spoke, Grace felt an overwhelming swell of pride. The whispers around the room shifted, curiosity mingling with disbelief. The eyes that had once looked down on her were now filled with uncertainty. She could see the color draining from Victoria's cheeks, her confident facade cracking under Thomas's scrutiny. "Who are you to dismiss her?" Thomas pressed, his tone unwavering. "The clothes she wears don't define her worth. She may not flaunt her success, but she is a champion for those who are less fortunate." With each word, he painted a vivid picture of Grace's true self, revealing her heart and her mission. Victoria, caught off guard, attempted to recover her composure. "But she doesn't fit in with our crowd," she retorted, her voice shaky. "How can she even relate to us?" Thomas leaned closer, a fierce glint in his eyes. "That's where you're wrong. Grace is the one who relates to the struggles of many, and she does it without the need for recognition or accolades. You two could learn a thing or two about humility." He turned his attention to Isabel, a smirk playing on his lips. "And you, Isabel, wearing that overpriced dress as if it somehow elevates your value. It's amusing how you think your designer labels and diamond accessories compensate for the emptiness of your character. What's the point of having wealth if you lack basic decency?" The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Grace could feel the shift in the atmosphere as the other guests absorbed the implications of Thomas's declaration. Victoria's eyes widened in shock. "How dare you speak to us like that?" she exclaimed, her composure shattering. Thomas straightened, his voice steady and commanding. "How dare you look down on someone who has more heart than both of you combined? You thrive on arrogance, while Grace thrives on kindness. Perhaps it's time you both reflect on who truly deserves respect." The crowd shifted, their focus now entirely on the two women, expressions shifting from disdain to apprehension. It was a pivotal moment, one that could alter their perceptions forever. Grace held her breath, anticipating the fallout from Thomas's confrontation. Would this moment lead to their redemption, or further escalate the conflict? The stage was set for a reckoning, and she could only wait to see how the story would unfold. As Thomas's words echoed in the lavish elevator, the tension slowly began to dissipate. The transformation was palpable, not only in the atmosphere, but also in the hearts of those who had borne witness to the confrontation. Victoria and Isabel stood stunned, their confident exteriors now crumbling under the weight of Thomas's truth. For the first time, they were confronted with the reality of their own arrogance. Grace felt a surge of empowerment as she stood beside her husband, knowing that his unwavering support had exposed her strength to the world. The guests around them, who had initially harbored judgment, now looked at Grace with newfound respect. Whispers of admiration began to circulate, revealing the impact of Thomas's powerful defense of her character. "Maybe they'll finally understand," Grace thought, feeling a warmth spread through her. Thomas turned to her, his deep brown eyes shining with pride. "You have more power than they'll ever know," he said, his voice low, yet filled with conviction. Victoria, struggling to regain her composure, attempted to redirect the conversation. "This doesn't change anything," she snapped, but the sharpness in her voice was dulled by the undeniable shift in the room. The once dominant women were now grappling with their insecurities, and their facade of superiority had been irrevocably shattered. Isabel, her expression flustered, finally spoke up. "Perhaps we should consider our judgments more carefully," she mumbled, her bravado evaporating. The realization that their wealth did not grant them the right to belittle others settled heavily upon her. With their defenses crumbling, Grace seized the moment. "It's time for all of us to reflect," she said, her voice steady and calm. "True worth comes from kindness, understanding, and the impact we have on others, not from what we wear or how much money we have." As the elevator doors opened, Grace stepped out into the bustling lobby, feeling lighter than ever. The sun streamed in, illuminating her path forward. Behind her, she could hear Thomas exchanging words with the guests, their conversations now centered around the importance of humility and community support. The transformation was not just within the antagonists, but also among the onlookers, who began to shift their perspectives on wealth and character. Grace knew that this moment would resonate beyond the confines of the elevator, sparking discussions about social justice and compassion in their circles. In the garden later, as Grace tended to her beloved plants, she reflected on the day's events. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that her husband's stand had made a difference. The experience had not only strengthened their bond, but also ignited a desire to further her charitable efforts. "Change starts with us," she whispered to herself, planting seeds of hope for a brighter future. Little did she know that the ripples of their confrontation would reach far beyond the walls of that elegant building, inspiring others to choose empathy over arrogance. Have you ever felt judged by your appearance? Maybe someone underestimated you because of how you looked, or assumed things about you without truly knowing your story. It's a painful experience, but also an opportunity to rise above and prove your worth. How did you handle that moment? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who might find strength in your words. If this tale of empowerment and transformation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. By doing so, you'll be part of a growing community of incredible women who uplift and inspire one another every day. Here, we celebrate resilience, kindness, and the power of never giving up. Your voice matters, and your presence here makes all the difference. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments. We love seeing how far our community reaches. Every like, comment, and share helps spread these stories to more people who need a little hope and encouragement. So, let's keep lifting each other up, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than any judgment, and your kindness is more powerful than any prejudice. Keep shining,